Welcome back to part 4 of our Halloween flyer, exercise 910, computer graphics, GRD 121, fall 2020. Again, this is part 4, and we're going to work with our text on our flyer this time. The previous video, we worked on creating the woods here, and we made these kind of tree things and the green things. Two shapes here. They started with rectangles, and then we kind of cut out from them using this freehand shaping tool. We even added some things, put some drop shadows on the end, and then we made this little path here. So we made the sky and the woods on the previous video. Now we're going to work with the text. I'm going to go here and turn this on because I had it turned off. Now I can't see it. Guess why? Because the text is on the layer below it. So let's drag this up if we can. And if you try to drag it, look what I'm doing. It's not working. It won't drag. Why is it not dragging? Because it's locked. You can't drag a layer that's locked. Sometimes you forget that until you try to do it. So I'm going to drag this up here and I'm going to drag it above woods. So make sure you're not on that. You're not doing that. You're leaving go when you go up here and you see a little red kind of line. You'll see a little red line. It's kind of hard to see, but it has a little dot on the end. And there's a green plus sign. So that's where you're going to put text. So text is going to be on the top. And you can see the text is hard to read. And hopefully you realize this, being in a course that's in graphic design, that you don't want to have black text on a real dark purple background because it's hard to read. So we want to make this stuff pop. That's why on this thing, we're even going to put like borders on here, like white and black. And here in the dark area, we made this white. And here we made it dark so it's nice to see on the light background, but we also put some white just to make it really pop from that orange and yellow in the background as well. So we're going to do some of that stuff here. We're going to put our text on a path. I don't know if we'll put this one on a path. We might put this on a path a little bit because it's a little bit work to do that. We don't have a warp tool, so some of this stuff is a little harder to do. But let's get started here. I think the text is the right size here. And I'll talk to you more about the text tool. I made this text for you because we're putting a lot of stuff here, but there's a lot to go over with the text tool as far as transforming it and how it works in a text box and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of good stuff we need to learn about the text tool. But just for now, just keep in mind, we're just going to put some outlines on this stuff. We're not really going to change the font or anything like that. Now, I think these are centered on the page. If you need to center these on the page, if you just click one of them, and you do the center, it should center it on the page. I think these are centered. For example, if this just happened to be over there and you clicked on here, that would center that. And same thing here, I think that's centered. So these are all centered. I think this thing's centered. This should be centered. This should be, no, that shouldn't be centered. We're not going to center that. We're not going to center that. And obviously you can move this up a little. So if you move this up and you're like, oh, and you sneezed or something, then you could just center it and move it down here. So we're going to put white outlines on these things so they stand out real nice. So we're going to start to do that. So I'm going to zoom in here and we'll work with this a little bit. I'll do the easy stuff first and then we'll do the text on the path last. So I'm going to zoom in here. And again, we're just focused on these things right here. Again, one of the things in Illustrator we can do is we can copy effects from one to the other real easy. Here we can't. So I'm going to do it on one and then we'll try to do it on the second too. And that's just the way we do it because it's a pro feature to have styles that do that. But anyway, what we're going to do here, and it'll be easier just to go over one first. Now, we're in our text layer, and you can see that text is named Thursday, October. So that's that text layer, and it's in this text folder here, so that's opened up. And what I'm going to do here is just give it a color, and it's right by the font because I didn't change this to an outline yet. And I'll just make it purple, and I'll make it a dark purple. Make it a real dark purple here. And we can even use the like the sample, if you want to sample it from up here in the sky, you could sample it up here and use something like that. But I don't think they have a way to save these colors, at least is what I know for now. So we'll just try to do the best we can as far as that goes. And we could also sample from this one since now we have it. Now I'm going to put a white outline on it. If I look at my sample, now this is a little bit darker. This could be black, but it could be purple too. It's hard to say. But we're going to put a white outline on here. And notice the outline is outside of it. It doesn't crowd in on the letters. It's kind of behind it. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go here and put an outline. And that's just a border. So I have to scroll down and I'll just add a border and I'll make it white. I'll click on the border color and make it white. Now, if I went in here, I'll click on here. If I made the border thicker, actually now it's okay. It's actually in the right spot. It could go on the inside. If you clicked on the options, you want to make sure it's on the outside. You don't want to be here. You don't want that because it's going to go on the inside and it's going to, basically you can't even see the color of the text anymore. So make sure it's on the outside. And actually 3 point is probably pretty good. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe 2 at the least. You could try 2 and see how that looks. Actually, 2 looks good. So let's make it 2 points. So we have a 2-point stroke, but it's on the outside of the path. What we could do here, actually we'll do these both at the same time. I'm going to click here, and I'll hold Shift and click here, and we'll do these both at the same time. And what I'll do, I'll go to a fill, and I'll click on here, and I'll click in the black here, and I'm going to take the eyedropper. See this thing here, the eyedropper? And I'm going to try to get it over the purple part and sample it from that. And did that work? No, it did not. I don't know what happened here. Let me click this again. Let me try that one more time. I held Shift, and I clicked in the fill, and I used the eyedropper, and I sampled the eyedropper. I think I may know why this isn't working. Oh, now it worked. I don't know what I did. It just didn't work that time. And just so you know, it's not you, because I know you might do things and be like, oh, it always looks fine on video, and then when I do it, it doesn't work. Well, look, it didn't work for me. I don't know what the hell I just did, but it didn't work the first time I did it. But now it worked. Okay, so now I'm going to go on both of these again, and I'll click on that one, hold Shift, and click here, and I'll add a border. And I'll hit plus sign, and I'll make the border white, and I'll click off, and it's still selected, and I'll double click in here and make it 2. And if yours doesn't look right, make sure that you check your settings and make sure it's on the outside. Make sure it's using this outside border setting. And that's good. That's all you want. And I'll click on this one. I'll kind of nudge it down a little bit, and I'll zoom out, and that's kind of all I want. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with this. So with this, I'm going to leave it black, and maybe I'll even change the font. It's Open Sans bold. Maybe I'll try extra bold. That looks a little better. And I'll just add a border. So I have to scroll down, add a border, and I'll just do white. And I'll go here and you could double click in here instead of holding down your mouse and going up and down. I'll maybe do 3 point. Make it a little thicker. Now it overpowers the other one, so I'll make it 2. All right, so that looks okay. So WCCC's Honda Trail. We have Trick or Treat up here. This thing could probably just be white. You could probably just go here and make it white and be done with it. And just do that and rotate it or something. We might do something else with it, but I'm just going to do that for now. I don't want to mess with that too much. And maybe this thing could be white too, because there's probably going to be some black cat or something down there. So I'll just make that white down there. So that's all I'll do with those things. And you could even rotate this a little bit, rotate it, to give it some movement, maybe rotate it the other way, just to give a little jumble kind of movement like that. So it's kind of coming in this way and it's turning the other way, just giving you some movement, circular movement here. Now, the last thing we'll do here is we're going to put this thing on a path. And now this is a little tricky. So I'll zoom in here. This is something where if we did an Illustrator, we could do some cool stuff. This will not be as cool as Illustrator. I don't say that a lot. You hear me kind of defending Gravit and getting on Illustrator. But again, this is free, so it's nice to be able to do a lot of cool stuff with free software. But we cannot do this. We cannot do Warp Tool. So what I'm going to do here is just move this kind of out of the way a little bit. I'm just moving it up. That's all I'm doing is moving it up. And I'm going to draw a path. Now, you guys know how to draw paths, and it's a good thing we just did our path tools. I'm going to make an S-shaped path with my pen tool. And this is why you want to get good at the pen tool. And remember, we go kind of up and make an S curve. We're going to kind of go up and then up again. Because if we go up and down, it'll make an arc. But if we go up and up again, it'll make an S curve. And you could try it either way. I mean, I'm just going to start over here, and I'm just going to go up. And then I'm going to go over here, and you can see what it's doing. And I'm going to go up, and I'm making an S shape. And then when you leave go, you got to double click here. Not click once, double click. And then we have a path. Okay, that's all we have is a path here. And I'm going to move it up a little bit. And there's our path. It's called path. Now we're going to end up getting rid of it. So don't worry about it too much now. But what we're going to do is we're going to go here. Now this Honda Trail is text. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to double click in here and highlight so it highlights everything. And if you're not sure if it highlights everything, just click in here. Make sure you see a cursor and do Command A or Control A. Now the highlight is like in blue, so it's really hard to see over top of the blue sky, but it's highlighted right now. And I'm just going to copy it. I'm just going to, because I don't want to delete it just in case I screw it up. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to do Command C on a Mac and do Control C on Windows. So we're going to copy it from here. And then we're going to take our text tool and we're going to click on a text tool and we're going to hover over. Actually, we want to get off of this thing for a second. Make sure this isn't selected anymore. So actually take your pointer, click off everything, and then go in your text tool. And I'm going to hover over this line. And when it turns red, if you hover over it and it kind of turns red, that means it's activated. You could even see it highlighting here. So again, nothing's selected. Take your text tool, hover over here, and when it turns red, I'm going to click, and then I'm going to paste and do Command V on Mac or Control V on Windows. And there it is. We just pasted it. Now it's pasted on that path. Now it doesn't look good right now, so we're going to have to fix it a little bit. Now take your sub-select tool and just take this little diamond point and drag it a little bit. There we go. Now it's moving. I guess I had to click off of it. It didn't like it when it was highlighted. I guess that's what I had to do. So let me undo that a second. Looks like I had to make sure that I clicked off and then went here again, and then I can move it a little bit here. Now you can see what I mean. It doesn't look perfect. This trail's kind of getting messed up a little here. So you could go here and click actually on the path itself, and then if you take the sub-select tool, you could kind of stretch it out a little bit and take the handle, kind of bend it a little bit. And again, it still doesn't look real great. Like I said, that's kind of the issue we have with Gravit. We don't have really great tools as far as text effects. Let's see if that helps. Is this helping anymore? No, it's pulling an H off. I don't really like the way that looks. So I guess we could kind of move these around a little bit later, but I'll let that go for now. Again, we'll try some other things as far as the text effects. But like I said, this is the, compared to Illustrator, we don't have a lot of good ways to be warping text. All right, so you hate the way the text on a path looks, and you're going to just start from scratch. You're like, I don't like the text on a path. I don't know if I want to do it on an arch, whatever. I just want to use a cool font. Now, what you could do is you could take your text tool, and you could click here, and now it came in the last font that I used was Pt4. And I'm just going to type Haunted Trail, and it's text right now. I'm just going to take my pointer tool and select it. And click off and select it so it's kind of the text box. What you can do, even with the selection tool, you don't have to highlight this. You don't have to take your text tool again. So this is just text we just made. You could go and look at some other fonts if you want. Now, you would want to make sure that it's something more condensed. You don't want something wider. You want it to be nice and high on this flyer here. You don't want a real wide font. So I was looking through here, and there's all kinds of fonts, and I'm not familiar with all these fonts yet. So I don't know half of these that are here, and they're like web fonts. They're not your standard kind of Adobe font kind of thing. So I went through here, and I mean, there's all kinds of decorative fonts, a lot of cool stuff here to check out. But I guess one I found was called like Wendy something. Wendy 1. I saw this one here, Wendy 1. And I put it in Wendy 1, and that looks kind of cool, except it's a little wide right now. It's kind of a neat font, a little playful, but it's a little wide, and I don't want to make the whole thing smaller. I don't want to just go here and you know, just make it real small, because then it won't really stand out. So I'm going to keep it nice and big, and I'm going to make it narrower. Now, one thing, this is something I just learned recently, because I don't know a whole lot about Gravit yet, but when you grab on this thing here, typically, it's like adjusting a text box, which it doesn't affect the text. So I'm going to put that back where it was. But what you can do is when you have this thing selected, if you click on this transform button, and not to do any transformations, but just to click on it, if you click on it, it makes this box so that you can do skewing, you can squash it up and down. Now, it doesn't have the handles in the middle, but if you grab this corner handle, I could just bring it in here and, you know, kind of make it taller. I can make it wider. Now that I'm scaling it, now I get a middle handle. But I could do something like that, and that looks kind of neat. And obviously it's dark on a dark background, so I'm going to do the same thing. But I'll zoom in now that I have that, and I can keep it as text. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that thing off now. And then I'm on my arrow, and it's black right now. I'll take my eyedropper, and I'll select that purple color, and then I'll just do what I did last time. I'll give it the white border. So I'll go down here to border, I'll add a border, and I'll make it whichever one you do first. So if you want to do black first and make it real thick like that, you could do something like that. That's 9 point right now. And it's on the outside because that's what I did last time. And if you're not sure, go on the settings here and just make sure it's on the outside. And then after you do that, add another one, and it should go on top. And that's this one here. And it's 1 point, so I'm going to make this white. And you could see it right there. And you don't have to go much, so I could just go up a little. And you could double click on it. Maybe I'll put like 3 point. I'll just put in 3. And that looks pretty good. I'll zoom out. And that looks pretty good. Compared to all the work that I had to put in to put it on a path, that looks pretty good. Now, it'd be nice if we could just bend it and do something like that, but I'm going to leave it like that. I think that looks pretty cool. So if you weren't sold on using that other font or whatever, you could even change these to this Wendy 1 font. And that actually looks pretty cool, I think. And, you know, I don't know if that Piedra font was that great, but you could leave these the way they are. You could put it in a script font. There's lots of fonts you could check out here. They have all kinds of cool fonts. So if you want to put these in something, a cool script font or something, you could do that. But that looks pretty cool, I think. And remember, the drop shadow was the effect down here, drop shadow. And I think I did something like 5, 5, and then like 50, something like that. I think if you wanted to make the drop shadow white, you could. Let's see if what that looks like. You can make a little glow on it. And, you know, if you want to glow instead of a drop shadow, you could do that. And I think if you just made this 0, 0, and made that like 10, does that do anything? Let's hit enter here. And I guess we'd have to do more here. Let's go 20. You could do a little blur on the outside. Now, it's not doing a whole lot when you're not moving it over and down, but there's a little glow on there now, a little white glow. And it's 100%. Maybe I'll do like 30 and see how that looks. So it's a little bit of a glow. That's something different instead of a drop shadow. And it's behind the black, so it makes the black pop, but that looks okay. And I mean, just something you could try out. I don't think they have a glow. I think they just have a drop shadow. So that's one thing I tried there. So you could try different things. Now, for the next part, for part 5, we're going to work on some graphics. But again, if you want to go here and you want to try a different font, feel free to go and do that. There's a lot of cool fonts to choose from. I think this is a font. So just go down here if you want to find some cool script font or just something very different than what you have here. Either use that or use something very different. There's a lot of cool kind of scripty fonts and things like that. So, you know, that looks pretty cool. That's I don't know, Racing Sands 1. I don't know if that works for Halloween, but it's close. So if you remember that it's Racing Sands 1, I think you could just type in race and it might be able to jump to that. Does it? No, it doesn't jump in the list. Unless the list has to be open. Yeah, I think the list has to be open and then you could start typing. And now there's Racing Sands 1. So, you know, there's a different font there that we have in there, and may work better than what we were doing. Again, we're kind of learning on the fly here, so that's fine. For our next video, we're going to do some graphics. So that's part 4, and just working with this thing here in case the text on a path was a disaster or it was confusing or it just didn't look good. Mine didn't even look that great after all that, but this looks pretty good. So we're going to start with part 5 next time, and we're going to do some graphics.